and Tampa Bay. Once again, this is Pastor Brian J. Anderson, host, moderator of Voice of the Village. Yes. Yes, thank you. You all so kind. Thank you very much. Oh, you too kind. Have a seat. And let me introduce real quickly somebody from the village. He's a brother of mine, frat brother of mine. If you know him, you call him DJ. This is Dale Johns. We're going to talk real quickly about the history of Pinellas County football, especially in the African American community. Put your hands together once again, sports fans, for Dale Johns. So, thank you. Very kind. Thank you for the adulations. Thank you. Woo. Very nice. Brother Johns, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, bro.
Doing good. Real quickly, let's jump right into it. You, St. Pete Devils class of 71.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a good class?
Well, it was. I would say it was from an educational standpoint. Yes, it was a good class. From a sporting standpoint, we didn't have the best record in especially football, simply because there was a change between the conferences. You started adding schools like Gibbs Senior High School. You had Tarpon Springs and others that came into the PCC from the Suncoast Conference, and those guys came in and they showed football what it was supposed to be.
Absolutely. Now, with the class of 71, it's infamous as the Gibbs class of 68. That was the class. I mean, you got a few who's who from that class of 68. Mm-hmm. But let's talk about football in Pinellas County.
You had like Crum from 68. You had Holly Jones. You had
Holly Jones?
Yeah.
He played for the Raiders sometime later, right? For a little bit. For the Oakland Raiders?
No, you're thinking about Henry Lawrence.
No, I'm thinking about Hollis Jones.
No, Holly, not
Holly.
Yeah,
he's been assistant principal.
Holly, he.
Oh no, I'm wrong. Still wrong. I'm thinking about Carmen Jones.
You're thinking of Carmen.
That was my assistant principal.
Yeah,
he played.
He played with the Raiders
for a little bit. Yes.
You had people like Steeler, the infamous Glenn Edwards played for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Florida A&M alumnus, and he and Holly Jones played for Gibbs High School, Albert Crum. Those were some real good, from an athletic standpoint, as well as a community standpoint. They were good athletes, and they showed us what it was to do, not only to excel in sports, but to excel as far as having community pride.
So, Dale, let's talk about Pinellas County sports. Let's just talk about it a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to. The reason I mentioned class of 61 before we started this podcast, you mentioned to me that about how the athletics was very good back then, and so the only reason I mentioned 71 because that was the year you graduated. Mm-hmm. But could you just kind of like randomly, and only your opinion, because I always ask gentlemen that who played sports in Pinellas County, and I love to get the feedback because I hear names I've never heard. I hear some of the same names, but then there are people who really understand the sports.
See, Brian, back then, I think people like myself, not only did 1 year I went to school at Lakewood, Gibbs, and St. Pete.
Right.
Because of the zoning.
Right.
And I went to one, they said I wasn't in the right zone. I went to another, they said I wasn't in the right zone. And eventually I ended up at St. Petersburg Senior High School. But along the way I met some guys that were number one. People like Daniel Wright. We attended Southside Junior High School together. You had Thaddeus Stallings. Thaddeus Stallings was one of the best linebackers ever to play for Gibbs High School. Like I say, you had Glenn Edwards, Harley Jones, You had Norvell Fuller. You had Michael Fuller. You had Nate Williams. You had Oscar Fowler. Previous to that, you had Bubba Fowler. You had guys that put their hearts out there. They played.
I got a question. Isn't Oscar Fowler the granddaddy of Dante Fowler, who played for Jacksonville Jaguars? That's the same Oscar Fowler?
Oscar is Dante's daddy, if I'm not mistaken. And Dante had a son that went to Lakewood, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. I mean, excuse me. I mean, that's Dante's father. So that'd be. I'm saying Dante Fowler Jr. That's
Jr.
Right. That's who I'm referring to. That's his granddad.
Yeah.
Because me and Dante went to Northeast together.
Right.
And Dante played running back for
Right.
Northeast.
Right.
And once again, if you're just not tuned to this podcast, I'm talking to Dale Johns. Grew up, born and raised in St. Pete, and then he's a veteran also. Thank you for your service too, Mr. Johns. And football aficionado.
Well,
He's a man of many talents. You know, he attended University of Tennessee. Okay, amongst many things he's done in his life, he's what I call a Renaissance man. And you named off some pretty impressive fellas. Some of them names I've heard before, and you know.
well, you know, people always like to use the term back in the day. It's not so much of being back in the day. It was being that we came up during an era when no matter who you played for, on the weekends, after you played for your school, you went to this little park or you went to this little vacant field and stuff, and you might have played against each other that Friday night, but that Saturday afternoon or that Sunday afternoon, you might have been on the same football team playing, unorganized sports, even though it was an organized game, but we might have been just a group of guys getting together. And we learned to live together and act together as a village. You know, it was a thing of, you know, whoever was there, that was the older person you listened to. Whoever, was there to enlighten you, you listened to. It's something that can still be today. And it's up to the parents to allow it to be that way today. You know, you hear a lot of situations, people around the country, Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, they complain about the lack of jobs. They complain that's the reason why crime is so prevalent. That's the reason why you're having so many this gang or that gang versus another gang. That's why this person's getting killed or that group of people is getting killed or shot or maimed or whatever. But that's not the real reason. The real reason is because from the standpoint of the family, people are saying, well, since 1970 we have broken up the family unit. No, we haven't broken up the family unit. What we have done is we have allowed people to say, this is my house, you can't tell anybody in my house what to do. Whereas in my day, say your grandmother or your dad, who was, just a few years older than me, if they said, hey, do this or do that, I knew not to be disrespectful. And I also was taught by somebody to say, hey, they're looking out for you. So since they're looking out for you, you do what they ask you to do. If you see or if you feel that something is wrong, then what you do is you come back to me. You don't argue with them. You come to me. I'll find out what the deal is.
Right. That's a very good point. And a lot of the guys that you played football with in sports, they kept that same mentality.
Yeah, well, see, that transcended from the field to the street corner. It didn't matter whether you was walking down their block or they were walking down your block. There was just certain things that you didn't do. Plenty of times Holly Jones was telling me, hey, man, it's time for you to go home. And people would say, he's related to you. I go like, nope. But I'll see y'all later. Because he knew my mom worked through the 11, and he knew that she wasn't home, and he knew that the sun was down. So he says, okay, it's time for you to go home.
But he knew it was time for you not to be in those streets.
I was not to be in those streets.
And he meant what he said when he told you.
We had the difference in the policing. We had community cops. We had Freddie Crawford Sr. We had Johnny B. We had Jimmy King. We had Nero.
We had my neighbor PK.
We had Primus Killings. I went to school with his brother Daryl. In fact, Daryl and our first job was Shining Shoes, and it was a thing of one day. I never forget it. Primus and Freddie and Joe Hurley. Joe walked up to me and he said, "What are you doing on 16th Street?" And I said, trying to be bad. The Roseland was where the post office is now. And I said, I'm up here, I'm not bothering anybody. I have my federal rights, and I'm, just trying to be Mr. Smarty. And he said, yeah, you got them. He said, but at the same time, your mama got a pretty good right, too. And your parents don't want you up here on this part of 16th Street. You shouldn't be here. I said, well, I'm going to be here. He said, well, you stay there till I get back. So the next thing I know, Freddie came back with him. Promise came back with him. And he said, oh, that's Mr. Joe's kid. And Promise said, get in the car. I said, for what? He said, get in the car. And Joe got my keys, and they drove my car home. They pulled up in the yard, and Promise said, hey, how you doing, Miss Johns? She said, I'm doing fine. I brought somebody home. She said, what did he do? Because that was her first concern. She wanted to know, did I do anything wrong? He said, well, he was up on 16th Street, and we know that you didn't want him up there. And he said he didn't have to go home. Well, I want you to know that I lost my driving privileges for a whole month. And she also told me that whenever anybody that was an adult or a law enforcement officer that did things the right way told me to go home or to do this or to do that, I was to do that. And it wasn't a thing of being abused or nothing like that. People said, well, I don't want people hitting my kid or nothing like that. No, she didn't play, you just going to randomly hit my kid or you were going to abuse my kid. But at the same time, it wasn't nothing for somebody to grab me in the nape of my behind, to be, real colorful about it, and bounce me all the way back to the house. And say I brought him home because he did this or he did that.
But see, I love that. I love how those officers, they was part of the village.
Well, see,
and they took part. They took part in even your upbringing along with your mom. God rest her soul, Miss Sarah Johns, and your father Joe. And the thing I loved about it is, there was no issue. Give me the keys, you get the keys. You went home, and most often than not, when you have time to think back, it probably saved your life. You never know. You know what I mean? For them not being up there.
Well, see, I shouldn't have been up there because, number one, I was underage. And by me being underage, I shouldn't have been up there at that time. And they knew it. My parents knew it.
That's good, though. Thank you, Dale. We want one more time. I know we started talking about football, and we started talking about the village. That's what I'm talking about. That's the impact. And thank you for your time. Speaking on, we're going to get back again. We're going to do another segment called Pinellas County Football. I want to talk with you about the future and where is football in Pinellas County headed, and talk about some of the who's who actually made it, okay?
All right.
This is Pastor Brian J. Anderson from the Voice of the Village, host and moderator. And I hope you join me this Friday, July 7th, for our inaugural show on VNF Live TV, AM 1590 WRXB, and on the podcast right here. God bless you all.